How many of you are worried about inflation eroding the value of your hard-earned money? You know, it's really concerning. But what if I told you there are ways not only to protect also your growth, despite the inflation, but I'm going to share with you how you can invest your money to beat inflation as well. So the first thing that I really like to do is to understand inflation itself and what it actually is. So before we start off, we have to understand, what is inflation and why it is important. So before we dive into strategies, let's understand what we're up against. So inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices in goods and services are eroding your purchasing power. So let's say, for example, you have, let's say you have 100 Rand. All right, now you've worked very hard for this 100 Rand. You've saved, you have budgeted, you have done a lot of things, and this is why it's so important to talk about this, because we've all been taught this lesson, to just save your money. But today, it doesn't work like that anymore. We have to really be better at what we do. So let's take, for example, this 100 Rand today, and you could buy, let's say, for example, 10 loaves of bread. But in 10 years' time, with a 6% inflation, that same 100 Rand might only give you, almost half, only 5 loaves, right? So this is why it is important for us to see and understand why inflation is actually the #1 killer in this whole story. So I actually want to share a good Bible verse with you, and this is in Proverbs 21, verse 20. And it says that there is precious treasure and oil in the house of the wise who prepare for the future, and that is investing. But the short-sighted and foolish man swallows it up and wastes it. This is one of the reasons why it is important to talk about, investing. And if we don't learn how to invest, it's going to be, we're going to fall into that trap of what that Bible verse says. So this is why it is important not to just, put all your money just in the bank. We have to learn how to eventually invest our funds. So this is why that Bible verse, is really important. Okay, so let's talk about the power of investing. So how do we beat inflation? This is the answer. So the answer is investing. Now, investing is like almost planting a seed. With time and proper care, it grows into a tree that bears fruit after season and after season. So I know, some of you might feel anxious about investing, especially if you've never done it before. I felt the same way when I started off with investing. I remember the fear of losing money. That's one of the things. But here's what I have learned. When done wisely, investing isn't about gambling. It's about growing your wealth steadily in the face of inflation. So you are taking responsibility for your funds and learning how to invest to ultimately beat inflation. Okay, so I'm going to give you some investment options to beat inflation. And the first thing that I really do like is about stocks. So stocks are a great way of, just investing your money. So we know that we can't leave all our hard money. We can't leave everything there in the bank. Yes, at a certain stage, if you're in an area where if you're at a stage in your life when you're going to retire, then in a sense, yes, you're going to put a little bit of your money in the bank, but you're not going to put all of your money in the bank. This is not a good idea. It's good to put most of your funds into assets that generate cash flow. So the moment you start to save, it's important to remember not to put all of your money in the bank. Okay, so we know that we have to invest and we have to learn how to grow these assets or your cash. So stocks are a great way of, investing with your finances. So, let's start with stocks. So when you buy a stock, you are buying a piece of a company. Over time, as the company grows and becomes more valuable, so do their stocks. So historically, stocks have provided returns that outpace inflation. So for example, over 30 years from now, the stocks market has returned about 10% per annum on average. And, that is well above inflation. So it is a good place for us to, invest with our monies. So think of companies like Apple or Amazon. If you have ever invested them in 10 years ago, your investment would have grown exponentially and it would have far outpacing inflation. So this is why investing your money into the stock market, in a sense, is really good. Yes, you're not going to be extremely rich from the get-go, but if you can learn rather to take your money and put it into an investment, instead of putting it in the bank, you are definitely going to beat inflation, because inflation is the #1 enemy. So stocks are a great way to put your money in. There are There are great topics to talk about how to do that. You can buy index tracking funds to do it, to basically track the SA40 or the S&P 500. You've got Vanguard, All Shares. There are lots of investment vehicle tools that you can use to invest in your funds. But just a reminder that if you are looking to invest in stocks, just make sure that you also look at the fees. Some of the fees are, if you're doing it yourself, it's just important to look at the fees. It's important to look at the time frame for how long those monies are going to be in the type of asset class. And then you're just going to make sure about, if you're doing it on your own, those are basically the important ones that you're going to look at, your fees and your time. And then you can obviously do it on great platforms where you can invest your money. Right, so the other part is we're going to be looking at real estate. Real estate is also a great way of investing your money. So property value tends to rise over time, often faster than inflation. Plus, real estate can provide rental income, which can also increase over time. So owning property is like having a physical asset that can grow in value and provide a steady income. So property is a really, really good game, but there are different ways that you can get involved with property. So number one, you can go and actually buy physical property. So you can go and buy that house. All right, in South Africa, the average property is around, in your millions, property prices has gone up so much. For your average 3 to 4 bedroom, you're going to easily pay between 3 and 4 million and perhaps even upwards. It depends on the area where you stay. So this is one way that you can, invest into property. Or the other way that you can also look into investing into property is on investment platforms like Easy Equities or Stockbroker, and they are called REITs. So REITs are also a great way of investing into property, but if you invest in REITs, you're just going to make sure about the fees and the time. So there are just a few things to look at, before you invest into property. But property is a very good way to invest. And also one of the nice things, I prefer a little bit to go more into REITs for me personally, because if you have a property, you got to manage everything. If something breaks down, you got to get people to go out there and fix it, whatever it is. The nice thing about REITs, there are investment firms that basically they manage these properties for you, so which is quite nice. So that's why I kind of like REITs, because you pay into that investment vehicle, they manage all the properties, whether it's in an industrial, commercial. So that's the nice thing about REITs that I really, really do like. Okay, right, and then we're going to be looking at bonds. All right, so one of the reasons why I like to look at bonds is just because this is a great tool as well to use for inflation. So bonds are another option. They're like loans you give to companies or the government, and in return they pay you interest. So while bonds are generally safer than stocks, they also provide a lower returns. So that's just important to keep in mind about bonds. So bonds aren't very strong, aggressive growth vehicles, but they are a good hedge against your money in a sense. So, if the stocks aren't doing good, bonds will be a great place to invest your money. But as again, these are just money that you give to the government or in certain investment vehicles, and they basically invest your money for you. So you're basically loaning your money. You're in a sense a bit of like a bank. You're giving your money to someone else, and they just give you interest on that. Okay, but however, some of the bonds like Treasury inflation protected securities, that's also one that you can look at. They are called TIPS, and they're designed to protect you basically just from inflation. Okay, so now property, stocks, property, bonds, and now we can also look at commodities. So, commodities are something that we can't ignore. It's part of the investment vehicle that we can do. So commodities have got to do with gold. Gold, silver, there are a lot of things that you can invest in commodities, but gold and silver are basically a good investment vehicle. In South Africa, we have the Kruger Rand, so you can invest in Kruger Rands. Also, the bullion coins, there are a few things. Crypto, you can also, in a sense, invest in crypto. This is not commodity, but cryptos are also a great way of, investing your money. For example, like Bitcoin and all those things. So, but the most important is that if we look at commodities on its own, gold is essentially a very, very good place to store your wealth. Okay, so finally, commodities like gold have been a hedge against inflation for centuries. Gold retains its value over time. And in time of high inflation, its value often increases. Okay, so a Bible verse that I really do like to read there, and this is actually in Ecclesiastes 11 verse 2. Give a portion to 7 or even divide it to 8, for you do not know what misfortune may occur on the earth. So this is why, again, why diversifying your money, investing it is just a good way of making safe that your capital, is protected. So diversifying and making sure that you spread everything even is a really good thing to do. All right, so I'm going to give you some practical steps to start investing. So once you get started, now that you have covered where to invest, let's talk about how to get started. So first, you're going to educate yourself. There are countless resources available, books, online courses, and financial advisors who can guide you. And also, start small. You don't need a lot of money to begin with investing. Even a 500 Rand a month can grow significantly over time. And then also remember, consistency is key. So be consistent in investing and not a one-time event. It's really a journey. All right, so regularly contribute your investment accounts, and over time, you will see your wealth grow very, very good. All right, and then just remember to trust the process. Be patient and disciplined. Investing if you're patient and you're disciplined, your investing is going to beat inflation. And it is not a get rich quick scheme. It requires patience, discipline, and you really do need faith at the end of the day. So I've seen many people panic during market downturns, and they sell their investments at a loss. So this is an important thing to talk about because it happens a lot. So if you look at a certain chart, most of the times you'll find that, let's say for example, a certain price goes up if you look at a price chart. And then what happens is a lot of people will talk about the certain investment vehicle. Let's say in South Africa we have the JSE. So now let's say the JSE is at a high point. All right, so what happens is people get excited and they get they have FOMO in a sense, and now when a price is very, very high, they want to jump in with money. And this is not a good idea. The idea here is that you want to wait for the market to give a pullback or a return. So you're going to invest low and sell high, invest low if you do single stock trading. But the general idea here is that you want to make sure that you don't panic when the markets are going for a downturn, and don't sell your investments, because then you're actually going to have a big loss, when you do that. Another scripture that I really like is in Galatians 6, verse 9. All right, Galatians 6, verse 9, and it says, "Let us not grow weary or become discouraged in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap if we do not give in." So this is just a reminder that, in your investment journey, it's going to be scary, it's going to be nervous sometimes, but you've got to learn how to take your funds, and you have to learn how to, invest. So this Bible verse just really reminds us just to trust the process. All right. So take action, and remember, inflation, it doesn't have to be the enemy of your financial future. By understanding it and investing wisely, you can not only protect your wealth, but you can grow it. So I urge you to take the first step today. Start small, be consistent, and trust the journey. And remember, every great tree started as a small seed. Your financial future can be that tree. So I really do hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you then in the next one.